up, it's as simple as a chair, right? For those who weren't in here when we started, I sat this chair up here because even though I speak a lot, I get nervous. If I get high, I get nervous. And so the first thing I did was bring myself a chair. That's self-care, right? It is acknowledging that I have the right to be taken care of, and I am the first and most important person who can make that happen, right? I'm the one who can figure out how to grasp it. I'm the one that can figure out what time of day that it happens. I'm the one that can say, actually, I'm worth this. And why is it important? Why do we think that self-care is important?
Can't take care of others.
Can't take care of others. I always like to say, particularly when I'm talking to caregivers, if you're dead, you can't do it, right? If we run ourselves to the ground, we'll talk about physical health a little bit, in a way that we can't get up out of bed to care for ourselves, then we can't care for the folks that we're responsible for caring for, right? So it's really important that we acknowledge that in order to stay on top of our game, so to speak, we have to take care of ourselves. As caregivers too, it is this really important, as we get to show, right, that we are also important in the process of health and wellness. And so it's sort of a like standing up for yourself, right? Making space for yourself. So I want to talk just for a second around how caregiving affects your life. Anybody that is a caregiver feel like sharing what it's like to be a caregiver? What does it feel like? Yeah, yeah, overwhelming, absolutely. Others share that thought? Lonely, okay, yeah. Tiring, okay. Full-time job, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, anybody else? Those are also important. So evidence shows that caregivers often are not prepared to become caregivers, right? We are caring for our partners. We are caring for our parents. I do this presentation sometimes with folks in the ID, intellectually disabled, DD, developmentally delayed population. Same thing, you know. You get it, your child at 3 gets a diagnosis and says like, they're going to need a caregiver for the rest of their lives. Often we're not prepared to become caregivers. I think that's part of where the overwhelm comes from, right? What do I do now? It's the same as like creating that routine. What does this even look like? There's not a manual. There are conferences like this where you get to talk about like, hey, so can we talk about meal charts and what, you know, like how to make sure that everybody's got what they need throughout the day and setting those medical appointments. But by and large, when you get the call that says somebody needs your support and they're going to need that support for the rest of their lives, it's kind of like, what next, right? That's a huge impact on your life. A large percentage of folks that become caregivers, I say go into the business of caregiving because it is a full-time job, often suffer from and or become in poor health themselves, right? Something to think about. And then this part that we're gonna, when we talk about these different things, is that stress to the emotional, mental, and physical being. I see lots of shaking heads. I'd love to know, what is that? What does it look like for you? What is that? Would you like to share?
I'm not a caregiver yet.
Okay.
I'm just preparing.
So I love that you're here. Yeah, because like I said, there's not a rule book. There's not like a game plan. So how lovely to start with all of these things in mind. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
I was a caregiver for my father-in-law for 5 years, beginning in 2008. And it was thrust upon me
Mm.
because I had a big enough house. I had free time. I was retired, and my husband's one of 12. So you would think there'd be a little support. Not at all.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they were all in denial. So not only was my father-in-law suffering from dementia, but no one would admit it. And, you know, in 2008, there was almost no support. I mean,
Yeah.
luckily, somebody recommended a book that, like, it's something like the 36-hour day. Yeah, and that was extremely helpful.
Mhm.
But, you know, that's why I participate in these type of groups now to help people who are dealing with it, because you do really have to struggle
Yeah.
to make sure that you stay healthy for yourself
Mhm.
and then take care of them.
Yeah.
And it is challenging. It really is. But in these years that have passed, I mean, 9 years later, there is so much more available. There
Yeah.
are groups, even I live up in Highland County, and even though we're isolated, we have a very heavy senior citizen group, and we do have a caregivers group that meets and
Awesome.
supports each other, because sometimes you just need to vent.
Yes.
You need to take an hour and just go somewhere and be able to say, okay,
To someone who understands.
Yes.
someone who understands is
Mhm.
critical, and know you have that support.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing.
Yeah. So networking. Also write that down, y'all, the 36-hour day. It's a good one. It's a good one. Were you gonna say something else? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
When you have that sharing time with other caregivers,
Mhm.
just the amount of information that you can get, practical information.
Yes.
I know I work with Johnny and Friends Disability Ministry, and we have a retreat. Mothers, we have them in small groups so they can share, and the fathers in small groups. And one lady from Lakeland, Florida said, you know, I have 10 special needs people in her home, but she never knew until she was in a small group that people with Down syndrome, you can get eyeglasses that instead of having the bridge here, it has the bridge here. You order them special so they fit on their flat noses. She said, I never would have known that if
Yeah.
I hadn't shared in this small group. So I think those of us that have been caregivers, probably will be caregivers in the future,
Yeah.
can benefit from sharing because you learn so much practical things,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
from each other.
Mhm. So 2 important things on our list of how to take care of yourself, right? That you all already know. Beautiful. Networking, right? And building your community. And reaching out to your community. It is so important to be able to say, like, this is my day and these are the things I went through and this is how I'm feeling, and I may be venting and I may be sad, I may be raging, I may be irritated, and for the other person on the other side of that to be able to say, like, I get it. I get it. And it doesn't even have to be like, no, let me share my day now. You know, maybe it is, but that building community is so important to self-care. When you are working through those feelings of like unworthiness, I think it can feel validating to sit with someone else who's like, yeah, like I screwed the pooch today. Like I forgot to, you know, puree the food, and then it, you know, lunch was an hour late. And so those shared experiences, networking and community, are 2 really great ways that you can take care of yourself. So some definitions that you all probably have heard. Compassion fatigue. We're kind of talking about it, right? Yeah. Yeah. It's that I am taking care of my father-in-law because the 12 rest of them are not going to do it. I know this is the right thing to do. I am compassionate for this person and their needs. And dementia is a hard one.
Yeah.
It's a hard one to get up every day and say, I love you and we're going to get through this, and have the person, my grandmother had dementia, and I think she called me James like all the time. That's my dad's name. all the time. And I was like, I mean, I kind of get it, but also I'm a girl. And like, he was like 6, 7 foot tall. Like, but that like, you get up and you do it out of love, right? And out of care. And the whole time you're dragging a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until you just are flat out, you don't want to get out of bed. You don't want to talk to your network. You're just fatigued. Burnout, similar, right? I think the major difference between compassion fatigue and burnout is that compassion fatigue often will hit you in the face, right? So compassion fatigue a lot of times follows burnout. You're day after day after day, and I got it, I'm good, I got it. Laying down at night like, whew, made it to this day, but it's okay, I got it. That's burnout. It's that sort of like, what is that like colloquialism, like burning the candle at both ends, right? Yeah. Depression, we all know what it is. I think it's important. So it's written here as its like definition is a mood disorder that causes persistent feelings of sadness and loss of interest. There's the DSM-5 obviously is much larger definition. The reason that it's presented today is because where depression is a diagnosable disorder, it is also a feeling that you can experience, right? It is a shift in emotions. It is loss of energy. It is a lot of things that it's important to note that you can experience depression, because I think if we're trying to figure out, am I okay? Am I, like, do I need to go to see a counselor? Counselors are great, by the way. I'm a counselor. There's nothing wrong with therapy. Is this just because I'm not eating well? Like, what's happening for me? I think it's okay to say I'm feeling a little depressed, and not like have the stigma that happens with mental health diagnoses. If I say I'm depressed, perfect example. If I say I'm depressed and I get a diagnosis of depression, are they going to take my father-in-law away? Are they going to think I'm not capable? That's a fear I think that caregivers have, but it's important to know you can feel depression and to recognize it and not to be afraid of it. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about compassion fatigue. What happens when you are sort of like at the end of your rope is a lot of, it's not always the case. It's interesting that this says like abusing drugs and alcohol, food and sex, perhaps. What it is though, what I want you to acknowledge is that when you're at the end of your rope, when you are fatigued, there is often this experience of wanting to feel something. Like I got to jar my system. Like I have got to get out of this funk. I do not want to feel this anymore. And so we just engage in risky behaviors, right? So it can be drinking. It can be drug use. Or sex or whatever that is. It's something that you are trying to engage to sort of like rejuvenate the body. If you are engaged in healthy self-care practices, then you will find that, maybe you have a glass of wine, like at the end of your day, like maybe that becomes the thing. You sit down with your glass of wine, you go through, the medical charts that you need to fill out or whatever. And that's relaxing. When you're having 8 glasses of wine and 12 and the first glass of wine is at 9 o'clock, that becomes risky behavior, right? Right. So acknowledging that. And I think that's important too. I love that you're laughing, but the sort of like buildup of risky behaviors, a lot of times you don't notice it. You don't notice that you actually poured the first glass at 11 o'clock, right? You don't notice that you are staying up until 3 o'clock in the morning, deep diving into some weirdness on the internet or something until it's too late. So then what happens is that you're just adding to your fatigue. It just gets worse. It doesn't get better. Emotional dysregulation, that's a big one. Like, hi, hey, great, I'm feeling fine. And inside everything is falling apart, right? It's that like needing to put on a face for the folks that we care for the folks who know that we care for the people who are in our home. We got to, you know, like put on a brave face, and underneath everything is falling apart. Emotional dysregulation, like a good way to notice it is, so like, is what I'm saying matching like what I'm physically feeling? So we will talk about physical health, but interestingly, like if I am nervous, I was nervous this morning when I came in, and I noticed that like my feet, like the bottoms of my feet were a little bit sweaty, and I was like, what is happening? Like, what is, oh, it's nervousness, right? I could have just been like, I'm not gonna acknowledge that. I probably would have slid on my rear end in my shoes or so, like so emotional dysregulation is, so noticing it as being like this, I am incongruent. I am saying one thing or even telling myself one thing, but inside I'm feeling something much different. So being able to acknowledge when I drop, I actually love telling this story. So a couple months ago, I was just going through some like life transitions and changes, and a couple of days of sweaty feet and palms, and like forgetting things, and you know, like moving quickly, and pushing myself to the point of fatigue. So I'm washing dishes. I like the dish drain, I don't know, was clogged. Obviously it had been clogged for some time. So I mean, just like washing away and like just pretending like everything's okay, and I'm just gonna get through dinner, and then I'm gonna go, you know, finish this grant report. And all the while, like everything inside of me is like rumbling like crazy. I know this, I'm recognizing it, I'm choosing to ignore it. I turn around to like get the next dish, and the sink is like overflowing, right? And so then it starts spurting at me like out of the drain. It was the weirdest thing. I mean, you like, it's funny, right? But in that moment, as the water started to like pour onto my feet, I just began to weep. And I went outside. I found my chair. I have my sitting bench outside, and I sat down, and I was like, I need to cry. I really need to feel this, because I'm telling myself that I'm okay, and I'm going to get through these dishes, and everything's going to be fine. And obviously the water did nothing to harm me except for make me realize that I was dysregulated. So notice that in yourself, right? Notice what that feels like. Are you laughing, but you really feel like crying, right? Are you irritated, but you are putting on a smile because you do not want the person in front of you to know that you maybe are irritated with them? We don't want the folks we care for to feel that way, right? We'll talk about that in communication. I am being mindful of time because I just talk a whole lot. So our time is 12 o'clock. Okay. All right. So I'm not going to go through burnout and depression at length, because they're similar. We got it. Okay. Great. So we have already also talked about some of the barriers to self-care. Is that like, do I deserve to take a break? Right? Is someone going to get upset with me if I take a break? If I take a break, is there anybody else that can do what needs to be done? That's a huge one for caregivers. I'm not letting anybody else in my house. Like direct support staff is like pretty minimal, right? In the world these days, you can't find good direct support staff. So you're going to do it all until you can't. Any other barriers you can think of to self-care? What prevents us? Money. Yes. Yep. I would love to take a trip. I use myself and like my own like life anecdotes a lot, in case y'all hadn't noticed. Found this beautiful yurt, and it's like a tent house thing right in the Shenandoah Valley. I want to take my 2 boys for Christmas. 3 days. It was like $4,000. And I was like, what? It's a tent made of wood in the woods. And I don't have that. So we can't do that. So we're going to figure out something else. I think we're going to go to Tennessee. But yeah, money. Like, who has time to like set aside who like the budget, if you will, right, to take care of yourself? Any other barriers you can think of? Yeah. Yeah. Well, where do what are you doing buying those heels? We don't have the money for that. I don't care if it made you happy. That needs to go to what, yeah. I don't understand why you need 3 days off next week. I've got school or I've got this or I've got that. I need you to suck it up and do, what needs to be done. Yeah, family. Yeah. 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 Lack of support services. Yeah. That's what I was talking about, the direct support staff. I've worked a long time in the field of folks being caregivers, and I know what it looks like. I probably would feel the same way. I wouldn't want anyone to care for my grandmother,
And
Yeah.
sometimes you don't realize what services are available.
Yeah.
I used to have a problem with my father-in-law wandering away. And one time he said, I'm walking back to Richmond. Now I live up in the mountains in Monterey, so it's a heck of a long walk to Richmond. And, but I was at my wit's end. I didn't know what to do. So I called 911 and said, my father-in-law has dementia and he's decided he's walking away. Physically, I probably could restrain him, but it would mean I'd have to tie him up. They said, we're on our way, no problem. And they came out and I was shocked at how well trained the police were. They were like, they brought him back up onto the front porch, both a deputy and a state trooper. They sat with him and talked and calmed him down. And, then he finally was like, oh yeah, I can't walk to Richmond. I'm tired, I'm going to take a nap. And I was like so impressed with these officers, and they were like, no, we have training for this. If you ever need assistance, my husband worked away during the week, so it was just me and Dad. And it really is amazing how much local there is, but you do have to hunt for it.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I forgot to bring, and I will just make sure, I don't know if y'all have email addresses or things that folks can connect to, is just resources that are in the community. That's a huge one, right? As a mental health professional, we talk about that a lot. No one wants you to call the police. No one, it's hard to do, but also sometimes, that's what you do. And so I do a training on how to advocate for something. If you need to call the police, what is it that you actually need from the police before they even arrive? Just what you did, lovely, good job. Here's exactly the situation. Here's what I need. So maybe decreasing any potential miscommunication and what they think they're coming to respond to. Yeah. So those are great barriers. They're horrible barriers, but yes, those are all barriers to self-care.
I think it's hard to admit that we need help.
Yep. That is the last one I was going to say. And so I want to make sure that we know there is this misconception that we don't deserve help, that we don't deserve a break, that we actually are fine, and that self-care is not needed. That's when you tune into that dysregulation. I'm fine, but I'm shaking, right? So how do we self-care? We apparently are not really sure. Anybody have an idea or a thing they like to do that feels like self-care-ish? Exercise, yep. Yeah.
Setting aside time for spirituality.
Setting aside time for spirituality. Yeah. Anything else? Groups? Yes. Yep. Jen, you're gonna have to run a lot, or I can just repeat. I'll just repeat it. Yeah, absolutely. So knowing what types of self-care exist, working intentionally to reduce stress, right? So we don't want to stress until we're flat on fatigued. Setting goals, seeking solutions, groups, presentations, network, community, books, shared lived experience, communicating your needs, being able to say like, I actually do need something, even if I'm not quite sure what that something is. I need something. Get physical, exercise. Every time I do a presentation, I'm like, exercise is great self-care. I'm like laughing inside because I hate exercise. I hate it. After the whole sink incident, I did a couple of days of walking around the park. I live really close to our park. So I don't even know. It's like a couple of miles, like the whole way around. My friend was like, you got to go walk the park. And like 3 days later, I was like, I can't walk up my stairs anymore. I hate this. She's like, cool, you coming tomorrow? And I was like, no. I don't actually think I've been to the park since July because it's, so if physical activity is your thing, then jump right in. If it's not your thing, still do it. Maybe don't walk 3 laps around the park, but fresh air. Yes, my back porch bench that I was talking about. It could be that simple, right? One of my favorite activities to do is just laying flat on the ground, like being connected to nature, right? It's grounding. That's a physical activity. It's not exerting much, thankfully, but it feels good for me. So get physical in whatever way that looks like. I don't think it's on this list, but also get spiritual. Again, whatever that looks like. I'm not saying be religious or Christian or Buddhist or whatever, but like connecting to something that's larger than yourself, right? Whatever that looks like, or not, if that's not your thing, right? Self-care should always be about the thing that makes the most sense for you. Once you figure it out, this feels good for me. I enjoy this and it's not risky. At least I think it's not risky. And if I'm wondering if it's risky, then maybe I'll like do an inventory of whatever said behavior is, right? It's risky for me to walk around the park, frankly. Okay, keeping your emotions in check. Those are some of the big things. Let me see. All right, so let's talk about reducing stress. Recognizing the warning signs. What are some warning signs of stress?
Being grumpy.
Grumpy, yeah. And it's like, it's not even just like grumpy, like you just woke up and you're having a bad day. It's like that, like everything. It's like, did you just say something? Yeah. Yeah. Is the medication late again? Where's the delivery? Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't have time for a hug right now. It's grumpy. Yeah. What else? Headaches. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. It's sort of like that dull, like not like just won't go away, feeling in the back of your neck. Yeah.
Pain in your body.
Pain in your body. Yep. Yep. What else? Yes. Yes. So unable to sleep, anxiety, absolutely. Sleep dysregulation is huge. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Again, self-anecdotal, having like the worst day getting ready for this week and all of the tens of thousands of things that I have on my planner for the week, texting my son who lives in Richmond, and I'm always worried about him. He's lived there for 3 years, and every day I'm just like, I'm so worried about him. I love you so much. So I stopped, right? Like, I think I was actually working on this presentation. I stopped, got it from my desk, went downstairs, refilled my coffee, grabbed an apple because fruit makes me feel better. And I went back to my office and I literally cleaned my desk. I don't even need this. I'm gonna shred this thing. This has already been taken care of. I'm gonna put that in the folder. All right, I'm gonna put this here and this then. And like, it felt so good. I was like, okay, so physically my space is organized. That is helping me organize everything that is going amok inside. Yeah. So that is a really great way to reduce stress, is just to organize. I mean, sometimes it's like for caregivers, maybe it is like, I love, so you get pills, in different ways, like packs or bottles or whatever, but I love those like bubble packs with the like days of the week. Like I'll just count them, like to make sure they're all there. That's like soothing for me. But there's other things, like what are some other ways that you can just sort of organize that disorganized feeling? Yes, laundry. Love to fold towels. Yeah. Immediate gratification. Yes. So yes. Yes. Love to make lists. Absolutely. Again, all of this is like physically, tangibly organizing something. It is having control over something. Yes. It is making, like, I love to, when I do my list, to actually cross things out. And except for those times that I accidentally crossed the thing that I hadn't done yet. And then everything goes crazy again. But yes, organizing is a great way to reduce stress. And then to actually, again, sort of connect that to your internal self. Identifying the things you cannot change. So it's the serenity prayer. If you all, know anything about Alcoholics Anonymous, I am not a huge religious person, but I cannot tell you how many times, like, it's so meaningful to just say, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Acceptance is a huge way to reduce stress. I've got to get up. My whole, like, sweaty feet, I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, as I'm walking in the door, what am I gonna do? Not present, just be like, Beth, I am actually sick. Like, I can't change, I'm here. I cannot change the way that my feet feel in this moment. I can breathe a little bit. I took a break in the green room or whatever. But there's bigger things that we can't change, right? I didn't talk a lot about it in watching time, because I think this is a much larger conversation, but we all went through 3 years of COVID. We're still going through COVID, right? And that fatigue, that stress of, like, I don't even want to go in the grocery store. I actually don't go to the grocery store anymore. I'm like, Instacart is amazing. And all of my Instacart shoppers are like, thank you for the tip. I'm like, you're great, because I don't have to leave my house today. But anyway, so that was something we could not change. There was no change to that. It was changing our lives every single day, the lives of the people that we care for, especially, right? Like, I don't want my granddad to get sick. And he wants to leave. One of the programs that Arrow offers, my organization, is called Coffee Talks. Like, literally, you can call us, or we call you on the phone and talk to you for like 30 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour. An hour is sort of the max. So how are you doing? I know you're isolated. I know you're all by yourself over there. Are you, like, are your meals getting there? Okay. Like, have you checked in with the doctor? All of those things, because we couldn't change it. We couldn't, grandpa couldn't come to the house, right? So reducing stress and acknowledging that there are so many factors that we cannot change, right? And then working really hard and being really diligent to take responsibility for the things that we can change. When your sink blows up, you can absolutely call the plumber. But if you're like me and I don't have money, you can also take it completely apart and fix it yourself. And that also felt good, right? I changed the situation and I took control and I did a thing for myself. So those are some great ways to reduce stress. Setting goals. So we talked about lists, right? But it can also be other goals. So leaving today, what I learned is that self-care is important. So maybe a goal is to figure out one thing that I want to give a shot, right? I was actually talking with a client yesterday, and they were just like, every time I try and do something, it doesn't work. And I was like, are you still trying to do things? And they were like, well, yeah. And I was like, all right, well, that's great, right? We're going to fail at things, right? Setting goals doesn't mean that you have to meet every goal, but it's that activity of saying, I want to set aside $50 this week. It's going to take me 2 years to have enough for the year, but it might take me a long time to get to what the end goal is. But I want to set a goal, right? Because it's something that I can attain. And it will feel good if you make it. And if you don't make it, don't feel bad. Like, I mean, I'm not going to tell you you can feel bad if you want to. Set a new goal, right? Start again. Maybe you missed the mark. That's why I told the client, like, it's actually probably not about this goal. It's about, like, getting to the mark, whatever that is for you. So let's find another path. right, to whatever said goal is. Communicating your needs. So you all have already talked about this. Like I need to talk to friends. I need to go to a support group. I need to read some books so that I understand like what this looks like. You need to say what you need. And you can also just say that to yourself. I am a single mom of 2 boys who are great and they do listen. But they're also 17 and 22. So when they were 5, like there was no listening, right? Like they weren't like showing up to be like, Mom, what do you need to feel better? So I got in a habit of just like telling myself. I know there's like a video of like somebody doing like affirmations in a mirror. Sometimes that's helpful. So I'm getting up this morning. I have all these things that I need to do. I know I'm going to be nervous, or I know I'm going to probably feel overwhelmed when I get to this point, or I know that, you know, I get really agitated at this time of day. So this is what I need. This is what I need in order to get through this day. So you can say it to yourself first, and you should get in the habit of that, because when we can vocalize or verbalize for ourselves what we need to ourselves, then it's a practice that gets easier to say it to somebody else. And so then that's the next step, right? Say it to somebody else in a support group, you know, a relative, whoever feels safe. I think that's important, right? Like to share your needs with folks that you trust. Again, I will, you know, shameless plug for therapy. There's nothing wrong with it. Around the same time that my sink exploded, I was like, oh, I hadn't been going to therapy for like a couple of years, and like I was good, but I was like, yeah, I need to start therapy. It's great. Love my therapist. So talking to a therapist, getting in the habit of saying like, this is what I need. I need you to pick up those shoes. You know, saying to the pharmacist, like, I need that order to be done at this time, because when I leave the house, I have exactly this much time before I have to get back, because you know, like I have a caregiver there in my place or whatever it is. Get good at it and feel good about it. I make no qualms about being like, this is exactly what I need. Does it mean that the person on the other side of that ask is going to be like, okay, great, I got you? No, not every time. And you deal with that too, right? But there's something that's really, really important about being able or feeling safe to communicate what you need. Somebody saying something. So the second one is just being clear and specific. Again, like I said, I need you to pick up the shoes. I need the order to be ready at this specific time. It's important because if you have so if you're engaging, let's say a pharmacist, and you have X amount of time to do X, Y, and Z, and they're like, oh, well, you know, like everything in the world is going on. This happened yesterday with I put in an order at Staples, a very, very large order, and they were like, well, we don't have this, we don't have that. And I was like, okay, let me stop you. I need flyers for an event. I need those flyers by 9 o'clock in the morning. The pamphlets, the brochures, all of that, it's fine. If you need to order something else, that's fine. This is what I need from you by tomorrow. And that was at like 10:25 yesterday morning. At like 2 o'clock, they were ready. I didn't go pick them up till 7 because I was like, no, I didn't have time. But so this is exactly what I need, right? That's important when you look at things like stress and fatigue, emotional dysregulation. So if you're saying one thing, but it's not actually what you need, and then that thing you said gets addressed, and you're like, I'm still grumpy, like, because you didn't say what it was, like you weren't specific. That's really, really important. All right, so then we talked about getting physical. That can look like a lot of different things. Like I said, it can be exercise. It can be an exercise routine. I generally don't, the same thing as like the client I was talking about and not setting too many routines. I generally don't say like, make yourself a 2 hours a day, cycle, Peloton, whatever. I don't have any of those things in my house. But like commit to something, right? If that feels good, a walk around the park, a couple jumping jacks. When I was growing up, my mom would do like, we would start with like, I don't know, I guess we started like 10 sit-ups a day, and then you like add 10 more when you feel like you're ready to do that for like a really long time, right? So whatever that physical exercise looks like, cooking is a great way to get physical. It's one of my favorite things to do, except for when the sink explodes. So like running around the kitchen, chopping all the food, you know, like that's good. Dancing, listening to music, also a really great way to get your body moving. But whatever you choose to do, make sure you do a little bit of it, right? What are some things that you all maybe do that are like, that you feel like are good physical activities? Yep. Just walking, being outside, fresh air. Gardening, also really good exercise. Absolutely, absolutely. Oh, okay. All right. Where yeah, that's good. Tai Chi, yeah. VPAS does. Oh, they do it on Zoom? I didn't know that. All right. So even in different counties, you can Tai Chi. So yoga is actually great for physical exercise. One of the things I love about yoga, like the first time I went, yoga nidra is a specific type of yoga where it's essentially like sleeping, like they like guide you to sleep. You're not supposed to sleep. I always go to sleep. And I'm like, I have always thought like yoga was like this intense, like I'm gonna sweat, like I don't like none of these things I want to do. But like there are all of these practices of yoga, right? That you can find the one that works best for you. We talk a lot, go ahead. Yoga Nidra, Nidra. Yeah. We talk a lot about and when we talk about self-care, grounding, meditation, that's another thing that's really hard for me, just because like if I'm disorganized, like it's going to be really hard for me to just be like this. One of the really lovely concepts of meditation is that you meditate in the way that feels best for you, right? So if that meditation is not like legs crossed, like, you know, like crisscross applesauce, humming or saying a specific mantra, it can be something else. I often, like, if I'm trying to meditate, I'm so bad at it, literally, like just thoughts are always like everywhere. That I will just say that, like, racing thoughts, like I'm just acknowledging that, like I'm here, I am trying to settle, and what I'm acknowledging is that settling looks a little bit different for me, right? So meditation is also a great practice for self-care, but just give yourself grace, because we all do it differently. We do all things differently. So those are great exercises. So then we talk about food. This one is so important. So I was saying, when I was in the green room eating my carrots. So on days when I'm nervous, I actually have a presentation this evening too. And I was like, one of the ladies was like, she was just going to follow me around with a plate of snacks. And I was like, you probably should actually do that. Like, it's helpful. But I'll eat I try to eat a lot of like fresh things, like fruit, like apples, carrots. I eat carrots like constantly, like little baby carrots. It's soothing. It's a self-soothing for me to have that fruit. Like, I know I'm like, I think I'm like taking care of myself, but it also just helps my physical body, right? Like helps my sugar stay like where it needs to stay. So if you see me at other presentations, you will probably see me with a little bag of carrots, because that's what I do, not because I'm a rabbit, but so managing salt and sugar intake, right? Just like your alcohol intake, that's important, especially as we get older. I said this to my son the other day when I had another presentation, and I thought I was going to have to leave because I just got so nervous. And I said, we were talking about the food and like how I'm like, keep my carrots with me or whatever. I said, you know, it's crazy is like you get to a certain age and like, I mean, I have always felt like super, super healthy, right? Like I wouldn't go to the doctor for a year, and I wouldn't get like, I'd be like, I'm fine, everything's fine, all my body parts are working. And then you like hit an age where it doesn't matter, like it does not matter. Your body is going to fall apart. I hate it. And so I used the example. So he has like a 2013 Camry that we bought, obviously used, he's 17. I have a 2016 Subaru that I bought brand new. And like, I said, your car is going to need way more work than my car is ever going to need. And also my car is like way more valuable. Like it's that depreciation of like body that sucks right now today. Really very upset about that. But so it's important, right? That we recognize that as we're getting older, our bodies are shifting, and we have to take care of our bodies, because if we don't, things will fall apart. So low, or no, I don't like, I'm not a doctor. So just manage your sugar, salts, carbohydrates, those types of things, so that you know you're keeping your body healthy. I think I always do recommend folks to see your doctor regularly. I do not see my doctor. It's fine. See your doctor regularly, right? Because it could be like a little thing. Like it could literally be like, I am feeling grumpy. I am grumpy. I am grumpy. I am grumpy. You go to the doctor and they're like, you actually have, X, Y, and Z going on. That's a physiological issue that maybe you weren't addressing because you're like, I'm just really trying to name my grumpiness right now. So go to the doctor regularly, right? As regularly as you are taking the person that you care for to the doctor. Drink lots of water. I hate water. I feel like I'm telling y'all my whole entire life story. So what I acknowledge on my busiest days, I have to drink water. I will always have water with me. I have 2 more bottles of water in my bag today. Water is so replenishing, right? It's so good for your body. If you're feeling upset, sit down and drink a glass of water. I probably would not have done that myself 10 years ago, but it is so important to drink lots of water, and reducing, like the other things that we drink that have lots of sugar and preservatives and all of that mess in it. And then, okay, so let me see. Okay, great, perfect. We might have time for questions. Maybe. Okay, so we've already talked about this, right? So that's, what am I feeling? I think it's okay to also get in the habit of that. Like, what is this that I'm feeling, right? In my work as a clinician, we have the saying, see it, name it, change it. If you don't see it, if you don't name it, then it's going to be really hard to change it, right? So I think it's important to just keep a check on your emotions. What is this that I'm feeling? Or am I not feeling anything? Like, have I not been grumpy all week or happy, or like, what is that, right? So being curious about your emotional state is really, really important to that emotional regulation and how we sustain our mental health. So I think, yeah, just this last thing, and then I will give you all, we have until 12:15, it's 12:09. So I just want you to remember that it is not selfish to focus on your own needs and desires when you're a caregiver. It is a very important part of your job. Okay, so any questions, thoughts, feedback?